Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Calgary Airport Authority briefing on construction and airport capacity. I want to say thanks to each of you for taking the time out of your day to join us. Calgary is, of course, an important airport, listed, of course, as one of the four majors, both for our FBO-based businesses as well as based operators in Calgary. It serves as an important economic hub and a destination for all kinds of business and personal travel. So this conversation is critical to all of us in industry. So with us today, we've got a team from the Calgary Airport Authority to brief us on some of the activities that are undertaking really in the next year. And what I want to also do is leave this as an opportunity to each of you. So you're taking the time out of your day to join us. And I think there's a great opportunity as we develop this Calgary Airport Business Aviation Committee to talk about and smooth through both the program, how it needs to reflect business aviation operations, and balance the needs of both the construction that's planned and the work that's being undertaken. So with that, I'd like to perhaps turn it over to the team at the Calgary Airport Authority, maybe Zara to start, if you would, to introduce the team, and then we can kick off with your presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Really looking forward to the conversation today. So thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Zara Noorani and I'm a change management advisor with the Airport Authority. And I'll turn it over to Laura and Kathy who are joining us.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks everyone for having us. Thanks, Anthony, for setting us up, and to all of the community for joining us today. We're really pleased to have the opportunity to work with all of you and make sure that we are sharing the message of the plans that we have upcoming, and make sure that we can address all of your comments and concerns before we get things rolling. So as for me, my name is Laura Sampson, and I am the Acting Director for Infrastructure. I look after, along with a team of individuals, all of the construction that happens here at YYC, both from a restoration, capital expansion, as well as overseeing tenant construction activities here at YYC. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Hi, thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be on this call today because general aviation, business aviation has been something that we have not focused on at all. I am the general manager of capacity planning, so my team looks at the airline schedules, the flight schedules for commercial and cargo, and we are looking at planning out the capacity for not only the terminal of infrastructure, but also the airfield as well. And we are here to support Laura and Zara in the schedule for summer 24 to make sure that we can accommodate the construction schedule. Thanks.
So Anthony, if you don't have any other points to add before we start, I'll start sharing.
Maybe as you load that, what I will add, Laura, for folks on the call, there is, of course, the chat function. Whether you're on the mobile app, you got to navigate to find your way there. There's little 3 buttons. You can use that. If you're on a desktop, you'll see chat, you'll see QA. I'll monitor that. In addition, I think if you raise your hand, I will be able to unmute your audio. So that might also be an opportunity to ask questions. And if all of that fails, feel free to send me either a text or an email, and I'll monitor those as well to facilitate some of the questions as they come up. So perhaps, Laura, back to you.
Perfect. Thanks again. Okay, so I'll just go through a bit of a high-level agenda here, and then I'll get into the material. So we already went through introductions on our side, but essentially, really what we want to talk about today is two things that are likely going to impact a lot of our customers and stakeholders at YYC. The first being a major rehabilitation project we've got coming up to one of our runways over the coming years. And then I'll turn it over to Kathy, and she'll talk a little bit about some of the tools that we're planning to use to be able to manage the capacity and the demand here at YYC, both for the project and into the future beyond that. So without further ado, I will get into our upcoming project that we're expecting. So just a bit of background on this project, and I'm sure most folks on this call are familiar with YYC and the configuration. So we have 2 parallel runways here, as well as 1 crosswind runway that we're operating as part of our regular operations. And we did open the new east parallel runway of around 9 years ago. So as has been planned since we were under construction of that new east field, we've been planning this west runway rehabilitation project. So the exercise will be to do a full depth structural and electrical rehabilitation of our west runway, which is 17 right, 35 left. This runway in some areas is quite old. Some areas in the south end date back to pre-World War II. Our records go back showing that it was in service as early as 1939. It's been extended and maintained extensively over the past 80 or so years that it's been in service. We've done a number of upgrades as well as overlays, but essentially the style of construction that was done in the mid to late 30s is significantly different than practices we're seeing now. Obviously, aircraft are performing a lot differently in the new millennium. So it's time to go in and do a full rehabilitation of that asset. In addition to that, we're also going to be adding a few new things to it to support compliance. So airports of our size starting in 2025 will need runway end safety areas. So we'll be installing RESAs on both 17 right and 35 left as part of this project. And we'll also be doing some upgrades to LED lighting and the like as well, just to modernize that asset. So getting into, and I touched on it a little bit already, the importance of this work. Part of our North Star is safe, secure, efficient operations at YYC. So really, I mean, at the end of the day, the most important for us, not just during construction, but after the fact, is that we're providing a safe surface for use. The runway is still compliant today and is still in use, but we do track and monitor every year the progression of the life, and we're seeing that over the next few years it will come to the end of its life. So we're being proactive and intend to get it replaced before it's any unsafe circumstances. Additionally, Calgary is a big, YYC is a big economic driver for the city, the province, and the region. So it's our intention to continue to support the economy here in the region by providing access to the world to come into the Calgary region. And last, I mentioned a little bit is sustainable practices. So we are upgrading some of the stormwater systems to meet future climate projections as we're seeing things change with respect to stormwater. We're implementing LED fixtures to take down our electricity demand. And something that we're very proud of is we're introducing quite a few sustainable construction practices, meaning we're going to be entrapping CO2 within the concrete mix, something that we've been implementing as part of our concrete projects for the last few years, as well as recycling up to 80% of the material that we remove from the existing runway will go back in so that we're lowering our amount of material that's disposed off-site. And as I mentioned, of course, the risks of not doing this project would be that, you know, we have a major failure of the runway. We may have to have some emergency closures, which are very inconvenient as well as costly for us. And potentially we'll get into a little bit more about the capacity of that runway at certain times of days and hours. And obviously we continue to grow and recover after COVID, and we hope to continue to grow into the future. So taking a look at what we're planning to do, we've been working on this project since 2019. It did get paused a little bit in 2020 with the pandemic. So since 2021, we've had a team full-time working on the planning and development of this project to get to this moment in time. We initially had intended to start construction this year. However, due to some of the rapid inflationary pressures and some contractual agreements that we're still negotiating, we've decided to put pause on the start of construction. We'll intend to be starting next spring with construction. So the idea is to do this construction of the runway over 2 construction cycles. It's a fairly short construction window available to us here in Alberta. So generally we consider the construction window to be April through November. So for 2024 and 2025, we expect to have this asset more or less out of service for those periods of time. Through the winter, late 2024 and into 2025, the runway will be returning back into service for regular operations before it goes back out for the second construction season. So this is a very high level phasing plan of what we're expecting. We are going through with our consultants right now and finalizing the phasing plan. So our goal is to provide this information, but as we get more detailed information, likely we'll revisit with this community and share more detailed information that will impact some more detailed things like taxi routing, things like that. But we're sharing all the information that we have today just to make sure that we get this information in front of everyone in a timely manner. So a lot of colors on this slide, but essentially next year we intend to do everything north of runway 1129, including the intersection of runway 1129. So that's on the right-hand side of the page there, highlighted in yellow and blue. And we're also intending to work on the runway threshold 35 left. And the reason for that is because as I mentioned earlier, we need to have the REHABs in place by the end of this year. So we'll be taking both ends out of service next year. And then the second construction season, 2025, we'll be doing the remainder of the runway, which is highlighted there in red. The intersection closure, I'll speak a little bit more in a few subsequent slides about it, is one of our probably more impactful times that we have the runways closed, being that for that duration, we will in theory need 2 runways closed, both 17 right, 35 left, as well as runway 1129. We do intend to provide a shortened runway 17 right, 35 left for that duration, just to be able to meet the capacity, or sorry, to meet the demand that we're seeing at YYC for the upcoming season. So I'll get a little bit more into some of the phasing and what's available during those different times. So essentially, we'll be running in 2 different modes of operations. We'll be kind of flipping around a little bit as we phase through the project. The first one being starting next April 1st, we will take a full closure of runway 17 right, 35 left. And during that time, we will have runway 1129 available, along with runway 17 left, 35 right, the east parallel. Moving into later in the season, starting in July, we will be closing runway 1129. And as I mentioned, we'll have the shortened 17 right, 35 left. The shortened runway will be available for departures on 17 right and arrivals on 35 left, and the east parallel will be available for regular operations. As I mentioned, we'll be going back to full regular operations through the winter of 2024-2025. And then in the second year, 2025, we will be back to similar to what we started with, which is runway 1129 available and runway 17 left, 35 right. I am going to pause. I did see a hand go up. I don't know if there's a question before I get too far down.
No, Laura, that was just BC a test, but that was not a question just yet. But thanks for checking the port.
Perfect. Thank you. So we did over the past couple of years do a fairly in-depth analysis of runway 1129 operations. We generally use runway 1129 for crosswind operations. However, it's also used for a number of other things here at YYC. It helps us a little bit with our noise abatement procedures. We may use it in instances where we have other runways closed for maintenance. So we understand the impact to operations when we have a full closure of runway 1129. So we're anticipating to start that in July of next year, and that's going to run for around 12 weeks. And the timing of that we determined based on some historical wind pattern reviews that we've done. So just a little bit of work that we did with NAV Canada in understanding at what point would they switch operations to 1129 would be when we start to see winds in the magnitude of 15 knots for wet or 25 knots for dry in the direction of 240 degrees to 310 magnetic. So you can kind of see on this illustration here when the winds start coming out of the west from any of these directions highlighted in blue, and they're greater than 15 in wet or 25 in dry, generally they would switch to an 1129 operation. Now, we've reviewed the amount of instances in the last 5 years where we have gotten these conditions present, and we see that in the months of July, August, and September, we are running less than 10 hours per month in that configuration. And most of these instances are like a 1-hour instance for the most part. So we've gone ahead and put those closures in at the lowest risk time when we don't see as much Chinooks happening at that time of year. But I just want to mention that during that period of time, there will be no crosswind runway available. So that's something just to take into consideration. I know it's very dependent on companies' procedures and policies, as well as the aircraft type and things like that. But it's something for everyone to know that during that time, only parallel operations will be available. Now, I mentioned a little bit about the shortened runways. So we have provided here, and we can provide this deck to be distributed to the community after, because there's a lot of information shared here. Some revised declared distances for the shortened runway when we do go into the parallel operations with the shortened runway. So as I mentioned, it won't be available fully with a displaced threshold. It will be departures 17 right and arrivals 35 left only. And the reason for that is because it's generally quite difficult with occupational health and safety rules to have overflight of the construction zone, and we see a lot of challenges for contractors when we have aircraft overflying the construction zone. So for that reason, we've gone to that mode of operation, and working with NAV Canada, we believe that the schedule can be accomplished with those runways available. So I have provided here all of the declared distances for the shortened operation, as well as some of the landing distances available to a few of the taxiways. The point of entry for the threshold of 17 right will be taxiway Alpha 1. So entry here, and then departure off of 17 right. Of course, exit points are available at Alpha 1, Charlie 2 uniform, or 826 if you could make it in that short distance. So as I mentioned, we will provide this information so that all of the folks on the call can benchmark it against the aircraft type that they're using. Now, this is kind of getting into a little bit of Kathy's wheelhouse, but I'll start with this. We have done quite a bit of modeling on what we have for available data, which is our scheduled traffic. So we receive schedules twice a year from our commercial carriers as well as cargo. And we've modeled what we're expecting to see by hour for every hour during the summer 2023 schedule. We will not receive this summer 2024 schedule until later this year. So once we model that, we'll be able to provide that information. But what we've been seeing is steady growth after COVID, and we anticipate that if there's changes to this for 2024, it'll likely just be some of these movements per hour will be a little bit higher. So in our most restrictive mode of operation during construction, working with NAV Canada, they've indicated that they'll be able to do a maximum of 54 movements an hour. That's both arrivals and departures combined. But I'll also add a caveat that there's a maximum of either arrivals or departures of around 36. So they can do kind of both arrivals and departures, but they can't do more than 36 of one or the other. So we've modeled that here, the maximum being 54 movements per hour. And then we've modeled both arrivals and departures planned in every hour. And you can see probably our highest one being the 9 o'clock hour here, where we have a total of 44 combined arrivals and departures. So at this point in time, we're comfortable with the capacity and demand that we see for the scheduled carriers, and we're hoping that we see something similar to that for next year. We'll talk more a little bit about capacity, and I'll turn it over to Kathy. I have just, I think, one more slide here about what we're working on, and then I'll let Kathy speak a little bit to that as well. So as far as what we've got going on for the remainder of this year and getting into next year, We have recently engaged our engineering consultant who will be helping us finalize the phasing plan, which we will be happy to bring back to this community as soon as we have more details on it. We currently have a construction management RFP out in the market, so we're soliciting contractors who will be the construction manager for executing this work over the next 2 years. And we're working on that detailed phasing plan that we'll be able to provide to all of our impacted stakeholders as we get closer to starting this construction. We do have some enabling works that we're undertaking right now. For anyone who is regularly out on our airfield, you'll notice we're doing a relocation of the vehicle service road off the end of runway 35 left. And we may potentially do a little bit more enabling works later this year if our construction manager recommends it. The only caveat to that will be that we're only going to allow construction works that have no impact to airfield operations. So you may see other construction activities off the side that don't require major long-term closures. But that's about it for this year. And then next year we'll get into the heavy lift. And with that, I'll maybe pause and see if there are any questions specifically about the construction, and if not, then we will turn it over. I'll turn it over to Kathy about to talk a little bit more about capacity.
I'll add, Laura, that BC was asking about adding the business aviation arrivals and departures to the previous slide. So Kathy, I'm sure you're nodding right now, so you're likely going to address that. And then it looks like Nathan asked the question, will runway 0826 be opened at any point during the construction for operators that have aprons 4, 5, and 6? And that likely leads to that, ultimately a question around the thoughts to that construction period. Also, taxiways, the consideration for those
sure.
FBOs, those operators that are up in that end, and how they can navigate around the airport.
Yeah.
So perhaps Kathy can.
For sure. Yeah, I can speak to runway 826. At this moment, we don't anticipate returning runway 826 back into service in the near future. At this point in time, it's been used for aircraft parking and needs a fair amount of rehabilitation. And given that we can accomplish the demand for our customers with what we have available, we're not going to be returning 826 as part of this project.
I will answer the question on the arrivals and departures. If you go to the next slide, Laura. Okay, for capacity planning. So Calgary International Airport is a level 2 airport. And what that means is that airlines do need to submit flight schedules to us if they want to operate here. So cargo operators, passenger operators. They need to, if they need any kind of infrastructure, whether it's a gate or a parking pad or anything like that. With a level 2, I have the flexibility of providing offers. So as we saw in the slide where we did have the arrivals and departures, that that result was after we had already negotiated with the airlines to move some flights out of peak hours because we were over capacity. So we do have the opportunity to do that. I do not have the opportunity to say that they just can't operate at that time, but we do have some negotiating that we can do and work with the airlines. And we have been prepping them for this construction for quite some time now. We are assessing summer 2024. We'll get that schedule October 5th, and we will start working on our plan. It usually takes us a couple of weeks to get through that and see what the impact is. And we will be looking to I'm going to anticipate that we will be providing offers to retime for those operators at YYC. The anticipated impacts, are for arrivals in the morning at 8 a.m. and then 2 p.m., 9 p.m., and 10 p.m. The data that I have right now for general aviation and business aviation is a bit piecemeal. So it is not something that I have ever really monitored before. I was able to go up to the tower last month to kind of monitor and review what that morning bank looks like. And I honestly was surprised that we had as much BA and GA traffic as we did. So that was really eye-opening. And we are working with NAV Canada as well as some of the other systems that we have here at YYC to gather all the information on the flight data. And so we've just started doing some of the analysis. And for those, I don't see anything that's over 20% during our peak. So the arrivals bank at 8 o'clock, we're seeing about 14% is general aviation, business aviation. And then in the departures area, we're at about 18% so far for total movements. Again, we're going to continue to receive this data and analyze it so that we can get a better understanding of what that traffic looks like. And then that will bring us into how we're going to plan on handling anything for business aviation. Online coordination system is a system that's Montreal and Toronto airports are already using. So I'm curious to know how many are familiar with that, if they've operated out of Toronto or Vancouver, or Toronto or Montreal. Vancouver is implementing for the fall. I've done an extensive amount of work with those 3 airports on how they are managing this particular initiative. And what we're trying to do even with NAV Canada is to remain as consistent as possible so that one airport is not doing something that the other is doing, as long as it's okay for the operation. So we're trying to get some consistencies in there, and I'm really looking to Toronto and Montreal, who have been doing this for quite some time, for a little bit of guidance on what works well, what doesn't work well. At the end of this slide, there will be my contact information, and I would love to have any additional messages sent as far as if you're familiar with the system, if you are, if you already have a user license for it or not, or if you are completely unaware of the system itself. So what is going to be changing for you is with this OCS. OCS is very similar to the wrapped tool that we had when we were working on the East Parallel runway. So if you've been around prior to that, you would have had to reserve a slot at that point using our wrapped system, which was a in-house built system that we cannot use moving forward. So we've gone with the online coordination system to keep it consistent. So in the fall, we will be starting our online coordination system. So we will have the airlines put in their reservations for slots, and for any YYC based operators, we'll open it up for 30 days in advance. And for any non YYC based, they can reserve up to 72 hours in advance. So we will be putting in the commercial schedule and mix it in so that you will know what is available and what is not. So really want to driving that consistency. Yeah. And this, we have some time to work through it. So we'll start it in fall. We will have some webinars. We will have a lot more information systems or information sessions going forward so that everybody's really comfortable in using it. We will monitor and provide, receive feedback from the users, and hopefully work through any of our issues or constraints prior to where we really need it to become fully operational is for March 2024. Okay. So roles and responsibilities, we'll need you to submit a user online coordination system application form. Again, if you can email me and let me know kind of what your situation is. An FBO can have a user account and use it for any of their clients, as well as the operators can have theirs as well. So we're going to request those reservations through the tool, and we are going to monitor how it's working. We will monitor compliance. So those that are operating outside of their slot time or that are operating without a slot time, we will be monitoring that as well. Still working through what that looks like. Toronto gives a plus or minus 2 hours grace. So I will probably follow suit with that. So if you're within those 2 hours, we will, anything over that or just complete non-compliance, then we'll be taking a look at that and addressing it with those operators. But we have a lot of time to ask questions, raise your concerns before we actually need full compliance. And if we go on to the next, so right now what we're doing is this session is raising the awareness. So everyone's understanding what the direction is that we're going. So July, we will be at the next meeting. I believe Anthony has booked for July 13th. So we will be presenting there as well, trying to get out to the masses to make sure we are catching everybody that's going to be impacted. In August, we are going to start working on the accounts. So understanding who needs an account, who already has an account. In September, we will look at building out the skills, creating some new webinars so that if you are able to attend, fantastic. If you're not able to attend, we will have those recorded and so that you have the ability to watch afterwards. We're looking to launch the new tool in October and then just monitor it and see how things are going between November and February with a March start date of full compliance. Okay, next steps. Really, I don't know, Laura, if you want to take this one, you want me to take it? We can continue on.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so just going to continue this discussion. Very happy that we have so many of you on the call today. So that's fantastic. We don't know what we don't know, to be honest, right now. So having sessions like this is fantastic because then it really gives me a lot of more information as to what that volume is going to look like and what the impacts could be. We will be setting up regular touch points. We can, yes, we'll be at the meeting on July 13th, and then we'll be looking at doing that demo in the fall. That is where we're at. After that, it's questions for all of
Perfect.
us.
Thanks. Thanks to each of you for the presentation, Kathy, to Laura, to Zara. So yeah, I think it's important to kind of reiterate a couple points. One, the recognition that's already taken. I mean, we've been connecting on the side. I think it's great to see the representation, both the recognition for our FBOs that are based and employ individuals at Calgary Airport, as well as based operators, the work that they undertake there. I think it's important to note as well on this call, we've got NAV Canada representatives. In addition, a lot of the folks, in fact, quite a few, are part of our Toronto Airport community, as well as Montreal. And so even to touch on Rory's direct feedback about the slot system, and as we've already engaged in with Kathy and Laura in the conversations with Zara before, it's critical to recognize, of course, the unique nature of that business aviation community. And we've talked about the tool and that window of time. And I appreciate you framing it as we don't know what we don't know yet. And I think that really leads us down the road of this collaboration we've got to have and we will set up. So if you're on the call today, if you've got a colleague that you think is of interest, this recording will be available. You can share it with them after the fact. But in the end, we need to create this YYC BA Airport committee. We will help shape this program. We need to make sure that business aviation needs are represented while this construction activity takes place. So let's go straight to a question there. Are you anticipating any potential blackout periods? So in other words, no business aviation movements at all during the construction periods?
There could be some restrictions on hours of the day. Yes, I'm trying to make sure that we're not completely blacking out, but again, that depends on the commercial and cargo schedules that are submitted. Again, our peak hours in the morning between 8 and 10, and then starting again in the evening around 9 p.m. But we're really trying to not completely block it out.
Okay, and that'll be critical. I think as you talked about, Kathy, that negotiation element with the airlines, right? It's critical to say we're doing the same. We're having to adjust, and we need to still need to recognize that component. So definitely we'll keep an eye on there. Matthew's asking the question: unassigned slots for last minute trips. So perhaps a bit of a view to how you see whether it's 30 days prior for based, 72 hours for transient, and those last minute. I suppose they're available for anyone to book.
Yeah, absolutely. They log on to the OCS and see if it's a green spot, you can take it.
Okay. Let's see. Any other? I'm going to keep an eye on the questions. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go back to some of those points. Definitely, I think that taxi considerations for late 24, rather the March program for the North construction. I just want to make sure we're thinking of the taxi considerations for the FBOs that are based out there. That's built into part of that planning. And I know, Laura, you mentioned the phase plan is still to
Yes.
come. Do you have that timeline? Did you say July on that?
I think in July might be a little premature. Probably August
Okay.
is more realistic. And one thing I forgot to mention that is sort of in our principles for planning is that we have committed to all of our partners on this project that whenever we have the runway closed, that north of runway 1129 and south of runway 1129, we will always maintain at least one crossing point. So, for example, when we are in the north, you'll either have Juliet or the threshold of 17 right available, so you don't have to taxi down to 35 left from say those hangars off Alpha Bravo sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
certainly. I mean, it will be expected that there should be some increased taxi time, but we're doing our best to accommodate as best as possible.
Great. Okay, I'll take another quick check around here. Perfect. So then with that said, as Kathy alluded to, July 13th, the team will be at the convention presenting in the static area. So this will be on this innovation stage. So it's another opportunity for the folks on the call here to meet directly with the team, engage, but know that we are going to, from the association's perspective, put out a call to join this committee. If you feel that you are impacted by it, definitely if you're an FBO, definitely if you're a based operator, or if you're a transient aircraft that visits YYC with some frequency rather, please consider joining, and then you can help shape this program going forward. So perhaps I'll turn it back to the team at Calgary. Any last comments or thoughts as you think about this program and the next steps?
I think I'll just close by saying, that we are really interested in engagement from the community, and we understand that this is not a light project. It's, essentially 2 years of construction, and it's going to be significant impact for all of our customers here at YYC. And so if you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, I pop my email in there along with Kathy's as well. So please feel free to reach out at any moment in time. We'll be there in July and would like to meet with the community again, probably a number of times before we start construction. But we really do want to make sure that we get the word out to as many folks as possible. So if there's anyone who folks on the call think would be impacted by this project who might not be part of this committee or something like that, please feel free to put them in touch with myself or Zara, because it's really important to us to make sure that we have the word out properly.
Thanks,
Zara,
Laura. And Zara, you've got a hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly what Laura just said at the end. So we're thinking the same thing. Is that if there's people that we've missed or organizations, partners that we should be talking to, please let us know. This is only the beginning. And as Kathy said, we only know what we know in many different areas. And we are definitely reflecting back on the opportunity that we have in front of us now to build that community, to get to understand different perspectives, different impacts. So please just let us know and reach out, and we'll make sure we continue to build that community and the discussions. I mean, this is a major project, but in the future, I think there'll be lots of opportunity for us to continue to have these types of conversations. So we really do appreciate it. I'm also just a little open in terms of that session in July. If there's something really particular you think the community would benefit. So Anthony, I'll kind of just put that with you. And if there's some feedback that you gather from the group, please let us know. We have an idea of what we'd like to chat about, but always open to touching on a couple of other things that you feel that the community at that point would really benefit from. So please let us know.
Perfect. And building
yes,
on that,
I think there's a question. Yeah, sorry, about will a copy of the presentation be available? Of course. We'll send that over to you, Anthony, and if you could share it with the community, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I'll do that. So it's a great way to address that. I'll definitely share it in next week's bulletin, as well as a link to the recording of this conversation. And feel free again to share it with your colleagues. So Kathy, perhaps over last to you, any last comments before I kind of wrap it?
No, I'm very interested to hear the comments, and honestly to understand who is familiar with the system, who already has a license, who doesn't have a license, if there's anything like that. One thing I also hate to note, I know I put my email address in here and I suggested that for Laura and Zara. I am going on vacation next week. So you might get an out of office for about 10, 11 days, but I'll definitely be responding when I get back.
No, I appreciate that. No, for sure.
Sorry.
And if you have a please send it to Kathy and you can copy us. And if there's anything urgent, we can respond to it. Yeah, Kathy is taking a well-deserved vacation, but we'll monitor and stay in touch. So if things come to mind, just send them to her and to us, and we'll respond as quickly as we can.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate that. So in the end, we've had some conversations that lead up to this point and where we are. And I appreciate the team at YYC, each of you for coming on, hearing and even adjusting in real time, seeing even as that presentation has come forward. I appreciate you sharing that. We recognize there is work to go. And we also recognize that because the other airports have implemented such a system, there are learnings that we have that are best practices. And I appreciate that you're reaching out and saying, hey, you want to learn them. So to that point, Kathy, as we've talked about already, ensuring that if OCS is that single source platform for the 4 majors in Canada, that in time, whether it's through the airports themselves or through these individual committees with the airports, we drive a tool that reflects the way business aviation uses it. And as we've talked about, that key distinction, very often not a dispatcher that's available at the pilot's ready. So making sure that updates and stuff are done in a very easy and seamless way. This is important. So again, I'll close on that remark that as the team here has said, they're looking for feedback. We want to stand up this committee. NAV Canada is participating. We're all looking at addressing how do we meet business aviation's needs at this airport. And I hope that you'll consider either joining it yourself, sharing it with a colleague. But again, appreciate everyone's time today to hear about this construction activity, and to the team at Calgary for being so open and really early in including us in this conversation so we can shape something that works for effectively all of us. So with that, I've chatted. I see no additional questions, whether in the QA or in the chat. So I'll end it there, and you will see this presentation as well as the video link in our weekly bulletin coming shortly. Thanks, everyone. Stay well.
Thank you.
Thanks.